Hey guys, this is Rob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to talk about the big public update release that happened yesterday evening, New Zealand time. What is in it and what is to come in the next few days and weeks, but also what the next big update will be focused on. This big update, which just was released, brings back the scenarios in a much revamped form. As you've seen over the past few dev updates, we have 23 tutorial scenarios nowadays instead of the old 6 or 7, whatever we had, and then 43 proper engine scenarios, but also of course the engine scenario generator mode, which is a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to in the next few days or weeks I'm probably going to announce a challenge where we want to see how far up the rankings you can go, and then potentially give you a V16 key as a prize if you actually win that, maybe for the top 3 or something. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun to see. Like how good are actually the best players in the world. That's awesome. This update features plenty new content, and mostly in the form of new car bodies. Or new old car bodies re-imported from and fixed up from the key engine version. And as you can see, they are having, in many cases, also quite a few variants. And then, of course, there are beautiful V16s. And those are available to all of you who have pre-ordered the game back in the day in the premium version, which you paid $10 extra for. And all that information of how you get your key for that is in the V16 FAQ. And that also includes information about for those who did not get the premium version back in the day and would like to get V16s in the future. And that indeed will be possible. So yes, a link in the video description below to the V16 FAQ. And don't you just love the sounds of them? In this big update, a lot of the balance has changed in the engine designer. Many parts have been revamped, like for instance the exhaust mechanics. So you will have to somewhat relearn that, but it is a lot more interesting right now. And it affects flows much more, and there is a general efficiency sapping from adding additional exhausts, or not exhausts, but rather mufflers. And that needs to be taken into account when you design your engines. Another big change to the engine designer overall is the new smoothness mechanics, and those make sure that you no longer can build stupid large inline threes and in general engines that are a little prone to shaking themselves to death, like ultra massive V6s and so on, or flat plane V8s. And yeah, that's inline 4s actually. So you will no longer see like ridiculously large engines of those configurations, and overall it is much more realistic now. Also, we have revamped the bottom end strength, and that has overall been made quite a bit more hefty, so they will withstand a lot more abuse in general, about 500 RPM more. And the internal balance between the components also has been changed somewhat to reflect a little bit better on reality there. On the car side of things, not quite as much has changed, although we have of course added 160 around-ish new bodies, but the cars will be the major topic of the next big update instead. And let's talk a little bit about what will be in that update. The path to the light campaign V3, which is a massively improved light campaign, not only a port over from the key engine version, and that is why it's taking longer to get the campaign in, because we don't just want to do a port of it, but rather come pretty close to the final thing in some of the functionality. Not quite the content, but definitely the functionality of it. And that requires us to actually have an AI that can build cars. And the first step was this big update, which you now have access to. And one major component of it you can access here, which is, well, it's not a major component for you currently, but you can find it down here, switch stats generator mode, and you can actually have the AI generate engines for specific target demographics at specific times throughout the campaign. And that is required because for the light campaign, your competitors need to build cars. Previously, we have done it such that the competitor cars were built by testers, and the current competitor pack is about 2,000 cars large. And of course, if you think about it like, okay, 2,000 cars, that sounds like a lot of work. And yes, it was a lot of work, and we won't be repeating that amount of work because that wouldn't be good. And also, it would be much more reliable for an AI to do that job, and eventually we need that anyway. So what we are going to do is to craft an AI which can build engines and cars. So for instance, let me generate a commuter car. That's commuter, not commuter budget, not commuter premium. It is instantly created here. It is a dual overhead 1.4 liter engine. That makes 61 kilowatts. That's in for year 2000, and that is without tech pool. So you can see that already the AI is doing a really good job and will provide some competition for you. And the next step, which is vital for the light campaign to work properly and be reasonably dynamic even, is to have this AI hooked up with a car building AI, which then will build all the competitors. And then we are no longer limited to only 2,000 cars. Another thing, of course, that can go along with this reasonably well, because we need to rebalance quite some aspects of the car designer as well, like major things. Component balance, of course, but also add a little bit more immersion stuff, like, for instance, show the gear ratios and stuff like that. No, you won't be able to adjust them apart from what controls you have now, but at least showing them, for example, would be great for immersion. A lot of car warnings and suggestions need to be implemented, like we have in the engine designer currently, but also the car scenarios need to come back, and along with that, many tutorials that ease you in, and new players especially. With the new UI, we can make the car designer scenarios quite a bit more interesting. We were rather limited in what stats were scored for the car scenarios in the key engine, because we just didn't have a proper UI design and UI space. And while you may disagree with us having iconographied everything, that actually is what allows us to make a lot more interesting scenarios, because this side panel can now be used, like you see here, for all kinds of requirements and limitations, as well as showing the demographics, like to have two demographics which you have to cater to here, and at the same time have you meet some specific stat requirements for the car. And that wasn't possible before, and I think that will lead to a lot more interesting scenarios in the long run. In other news, the modding has come really far actually, and we have managed to implement a modded car body into the game. Well, it was just one car body taken from the game files and then re-imported as a mod, and it is working already. So we are working on packaging the modding tools now, so that you also can have access to them and create fixtures and cars. And I think that will be quite awesome for the modding community to rise up again and finally abandon the key engine and just move ahead and maybe bring over the existing mods from the key engine into the Unreal version of the game. Overall, we expect this big update, the coming one, to take about as long as the one we just released. So a bit shorter, maybe around 2 months until open beta. And in it will be all kinds of new goodies, and apart from what I already talked about, of course, a lot more content. In the coming days, we will definitely have another look at releasing a patch for this version of the game, and then also give you more details on how the modding tools have gone so far. And from there, we will, of course, keep you updated with little dev updates about the current design status and what more is to come, and what we are working on, of course. Alright, that is all for today. I hope you are having fun with the current version, and see you guys next time.